And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the ToolBelt, episode 214. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
GC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. GC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
GC Backer.
And we are back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in on this wonderful afternoon, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We just recently changed our time a few weeks ago to, capture a different audience, to put our content out there for those of you that may be on your lunch break or whatever. But don't forget to check us out on Spotify, Google, Apple Play, on the replay, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, our Facebook as well. So, Tony Whatley, we have another special guest today, someone that I hold near and dear to my heart, business coach, health nut, podcaster, author, speaker, entrepreneur, car fanatic, founder of Deviant Motors, and of course, last but not least, founder of the LS1 Tech. My man, how the hell are you?
Hey man, good to have, thanks for this opportunity there. I gotta say something about that commercial though, man. I don't know if playing guitars on the roof is OSHA approved. Just putting that out there.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should get Tim Brown to put a harness on. Maybe it won't look so bad.
There you go. Or he's got a parachute, something.
Something, anything, some guide rails or something. No, thanks for pointing that out. So Vic, take care of that right away for us before we get in trouble. But no, all good stuff, man. So Tony, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. Like I said earlier, and I wasn't exaggerating. You're a friend, mentor, a coach. You're my coach. You're my business life coach. We talk about just about damn near anything, and the importance of that for me, has been, pretty deep on many levels of entrepreneurship, personal stuff. And, I just want to give you a big shout out for being there and listening to my crazy ass stuff and helping me stay on track.
Well, hey, it takes a little bit of crazy to hear crazy and understand crazy. So we're on that same page there, and I appreciate the kind words. And, that's something, I guess, I believe I was your first business coach, and you didn't know what the hell you were getting into when you signed up for that. So it might be an interesting story there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting myself involved with. I knew that if this was going to work, that I was going to need to be transparent and vulnerable,
Mhm.
which I've always had, issues with trust and being vulnerable, especially with another man. But it has paid dividends for me to be able to open up to you and be vulnerable. And we're just beginning. This is just the beginning. We're just getting started. And thus far, I mean, with what, maybe 6 months now, we're already making leaps and bounds in the conversations that we have. And I want to just probably say this: what attracted me to you the most was your demeanor. Right, you're not real high strung. You do get jacked up when you need to get jacked up, but you can compose yourself very well and in a professional manner. And I needed someone. I was seeking someone that could help complement me and reel me in and bring me in. And you're calm, cool, collective, like you're Cool Hand Luke, right? That's just my purview of you, is that you're just this don't get excited very easily over stuff. And I do. So I need that at times to be like, hey, Ty, it's really not that important. Or neither are you. You're really not that important. So just,
Mhm.
Take a step back, relax, and we'll figure this out together. And it's kind of like you've been a sponsor to me as well in many facets. And then those of you that might know what a sponsor is, Tony's like my business slash um, personal sponsor, and has helped me and guided me and still is and will continue to guide me through and help navigate through, whether it's uncertainty in economic things or areas of business and professional stuff that I haven't gone to yet. But going back to what, you know, attracted me to you is that you've been places that I haven't been yet. Right. And those that you've surrounded yourself with and yourself personally is like, that's where I want to be. That's who I want to be. You are the sum that I want to be. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's why I've opened this door of vulnerability, to expand my mind mentally, physically, and spiritually on levels that I didn't even know that existed. Because let's face it, and we hear it all the time, we don't know what we don't know.
that's
And
right.
you're that for me.
Well, I appreciate those words. It means a lot coming from you, and yeah, I guess we got to know each other almost a year now. Yeah, we met at a Revolt conference with Hunter, and
Hmm.
and I always think about that day because it was a room full of strangers. I didn't know anybody there but Hunter.
Hmm.
You were one of the only ones in the entire room. I don't know, it was like 120 people or something. It was a pretty big turnout, and I just remember you came up and introduced yourself, and you're willing to have a conversation with somebody that I didn't dress like you guys. I just showed up. I was wearing my own gear and thought I was kind of an unusual duck, I guess. But she started a conversation with me. I was like, I'm here for this, and I'm actually one of the speakers. And they're like, oh, cool. Like I didn't know that. So, yeah. So I think that most people hear the word business coach and they think it's going to be a bunch of boring conversation about P&Ls and balance sheets and you know, somebody like, oh, you should do this and you should cut this cost and very strategic stuff. That's kind of the typical business coach. But I would say I'm more of a high performance coach. I definitely have the business background, but a lot of our conversations with executives are not just what's going on in their business. We always want to address what is the thing that's keeping you up at night. What's the main
Hmm.
challenge that you're facing at any given moment, and that's subject to change all the time. And so I know that from doing this for so long that if there's something that's creating anxiety or fear or a challenge inside your life, you're not going to hear the P&L talk. You're not going to hear the strategic mergers and acquisition conversation because whatever we are faced with on a daily basis is what's really taking a lot of our attention. And you talked about the calm and the cool and the collected. That's something that I've worked on extremely hard for my entire adult life was being in emotional control. The thing is that we feel these emotions. I feel anger and I feel envy and I feel joy and things like that. But the problem with most people is they react to things. It's a knee jerk reaction. They have a stimulus, sets them off. They feel an emotion about something and then they react. The proper way to do that is have that moment of milliseconds of really self awareness between the stimulus and your response. people who are emotionally mature and emotionally in control learn how to respond. It's not a reaction. You can feel that, that anger, you can feel those kind of things, but what's the proper way to respond? And that's when you start to get into self-awareness and you start to work on these kind of things. And you go, man, I got a bad temper. Like, oh, and people blame it on their parents and stuff like that. Oh, my dad had a bad temper. That's why I have one. No, you choose to have a bad temper. My dad had an awful temper, but he's not like that anymore. So he chose not to be like that anymore. Just
Mhm.
like you can choose, or anybody that's watching can choose to your entire emotional control, your behaviors, your reactions are gone, replaced with responses.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And what made me think of that, or what, when you were talking, I was thinking there for a second, how many times I put myself into, a jackpot due to making long-term decisions based upon short-term emotions,
Yeah.
right? And not necessarily having a very fit decision-making muscle at that time. um, and how many jackpots that's gotten me into. And sometimes I personally need more than like 30 seconds to take 10 deep breaths before I react, right? Because we all know reacting is not the way to go about it, but to respond to something and with a, level head, and where I can think clearly. And I'm guilty of that so much. And again, that going back to what's kind of gravitated me towards your demeanor was a lot of that, and your personality, of course, and your achievements, and not just financial achievements, but your family success, and things that you've done like that has also attracted me to you. And how you take care of your body, right? And I think that has galvanized our relationship, because the more that I get to know you as a human being, and an individual, and an entrepreneur, the things that you do or have sacrificed not doing, I guess, to improve the quality of your life
Mhm.
and your health, mentally and physically, internally and externally, is pretty cool. So, and we can dive into that later, but, making, decisions with a level head, that's very difficult at times, especially when we're prone to take things personally, right?
Yeah.
Because I always feel like a person says something, especially when it comes to business things. And where I get it, where it gets foggy for me is like, this isn't personal, what he's saying, or they're not going to use our services, or whatever the case might be,
Mhm.
typically isn't a personal decision. It's something that is a business decision. And I've struggled with that for many years. And I even say, it's like, I don't believe in like, it's strictly business. It's nothing personal. It's just business. Because I'm one of those people that feel like, everything's personally, like we personally hired you because I liked you.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to differentiate the two. So tell us a little bit about your experience with, like,
Yeah.
it's business, nothing personal
And
experience.
I think that, one of the best ways, we'll start with the really basic stuff here. So I think if you want to work on emotional control, you don't have to go as far as doing martial arts and things like that. That's where I learned it as a kid, because if you lose your composure in the ring, you're going to get your ass beat. So it's people that have never been trained are the ones that try to be all scary and yell and do all these dramatics. But the professionals don't act like that. You see those kind of things, like even at the UFC or MMA, when people are walking into the ring, the walk-on music's playing and the pyrotechnics are going off, and they're all dramatic, and they're putting on the entertainment aspect because they're entertainers at the same time as being fighters. And they even get in the ring and they're flexing a little bit and peacocking, and so they're showboating, and so everybody kind of looks at that part. But what most people don't pay attention is that when it goes ding ding and the round starts, those two guys in the ring go ice cold, and they're really focused. There's no emotion. They're just really focused on offense and defensive moves. And so, a good example of that, like spy movies. You don't see spy guys running around like making a bunch of noise and yelling and scaring people. They're just kind of creeping around small, like looking like they blend in with everybody. And they take somebody out and they're just kind of like fix their tie and they keep walking. Right. So, the best way to get a lot of reps at this is if anybody's watching this that has road rage. That's the most common form of emotional, losing your self control. And think about this. Somebody cuts you off and you're honking the horn and you're shouting obscenities at a windshield. They can't hear you anyways. So everybody in the car with you, or even yourself, you're the one that's hearing these negative words. that person that cut you off could be just having a good old time. They could be singing their favorite song, just not a care in the world. And yeah, they didn't see you in the mirror and they got over and they're having the best time of their life and they ruined your day for the day. You know, when I was working in corporate and oil and gas and people would come in, I worked in downtown Houston and people would come in and like, oh, traffic was just awful and blah, blah. And that would set the tone for their entire day.
Mhm.
So they're letting people that are doing things that are beyond their control ruin their entire day. Where if they would just go, hey, I need to work on my emotional control and not let those people that are oblivious because they didn't see me, obviously cutting me off, ruin my day. Like how I let all these people that I can't control ruin my day. And
Mhm.
so that, and I would say the next thing that people work on is the keyboards. When someone says something negative to you online or things like that, like how do we react? Oh, when we feel pain, we want to dish it out and like return pain, right? That's our reaction.
Mhm.
But you should also use that as an opportunity to go, you know what? Maybe I disarm this person because maybe they're going through some things. And when people criticize or being haters and things like that, it's usually a more of an illustrative thing that's going on with something within their life. They're
Mhm.
at a low point, there's something that's bothering them, or they're just envious of you, or just whatever. There's something going on in their life that they feel like they want to criticize or do things to kind of take you down a notch. And so I actually feel empathy for those people. I feel sorry for those people, and it's a mindset shift. Like they're not attacking me, they're really attacking themselves. They're just trying to use me as like their target. Nobody likes to be the target. So a lot of times I'll just disarm them with humor or I'll just turn it back on them and have fun with it and be like, "Oh, that's interesting comment. Thank you for sharing." Like you could just be like funny with it. And so take those as opportunities, especially on social media, that other people are watching the interaction. Because if somebody comes into your post and they're talking trash and having, a bad day, if you engage in that, that's what they want. They want that argument. They're looking for that. But if you were to go, "Hey, thank you for the comment. Appreciate you sharing." You basically just armed them and they're like not getting that fight. It probably sets them off a little bit more, but you don't care because again, you don't control them. And if
Mhm.
they keep doing it, just remove them from your friends list and stuff like that. So these are just little exercises on emotional control that happen to us on an almost daily basis, right?
Sure.
So if we can master the little things that happen over and over and over, your self-awareness starts to increase. You start to get more comfortable with responding versus reacting. And soon enough, you're like, hey, the person cut me off. Yeah, okay, yeah, they're dumbass, but okay, I'm not gonna let it bother me. I got stuff to do today.
Yeah, so much good stuff in there, Tony. There was a lot of good things. So going back to someone cutting you off, and we've often used this analogy, of I got a brand new truck, somebody almost cut me off, and my first instinct or feeling that I get is fear, right? But then 2.3 seconds later, it's rage. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, where did that rage come from? It was like, because it scared the shit out of me. Right. And I think knowing that, so there's that aspect of things of why am I acting so poorly right now? It's because, oh my God, I was afraid that they were going to hit my car. And knowing that and being self-aware, right, that you touched on there a little bit, um, knowing that about myself, that okay, when it comes to certain things, I scare easily and I need to prepare myself better for situations and maybe drive more defensively and not offensively,
Yeah,
whatever the case might be, right? So you got that, you have that part of it, and knowing that, and then the other part that that when you were talking about control, right? Like now who's in control of your life? Are you allowing these people, like now you fully lost control of
that's it.
your life, and you're allowing these outside circumstances or people, places, things, or situations to control you. So now you're no longer in control of you anymore because you're allowing these outside elements to affect how you're handling the rest of your day,
Mhm.
which really kind of sucks for those that may have to work around you or significant others because of something that happened at 6 a.m. this morning and here it is 6 p.m. I'm drained. I have an emotional hangover. I can't even remember what happened at 6 a.m. I just know I'm a miserable prick at this point in time.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But being self aware, of your internal and your external being, I think plays a lot into that. So can you give us some examples of things that you have done in the past to help work on self-awareness, self-control, and probably a lot of it, fear and self-doubt is probably sprinkled in there too, for us to react opposed to responding.
For me, I think that it came always down to anything that's in competition, right? Most of the people that watch this show, they're into personal development. They're alpha dudes primarily. We're competitive in sports and all kinds of things. So early on, it was martial arts. I think that I was more emotional before that. And especially the first few weeks when you join something, I was in judo. I just remember getting tossed like over and over and over. And the sensei wouldn't teach us how to do any strikes or kicks. We were just basically being tackling dummies for the first few weeks. And I remember, I was young. I came home to my mom and I was like, this sucks. Like all they're doing is throwing me to the ground and I'm not even learning how to punch or kick. And she's like, that's part of the process. Like you have to learn to fall before you can do everything else. You have to learn how to take a fall. They're teaching you how to roll out of the fall. They're teaching you how to react to those things versus, it's just all a process here. And I remember, it's a lot like wrestling when you're in judo, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu is actually built off of judo. It's when you're wrapped up and you're being pinned, but if you were like to go having a panic attack and try to like fight for the death and like get out of that, like you're probably going to lose your composure. You're going to get gassed. You're going to get, submitted. So you always have to have your mind like very clear when you're in that situation, especially when you're rolling, is like, okay, where are their limbs? How are they trying to take advantage of my limbs? How am I going to get submitted here? And you're trying to control their wrists and their legs and all these different things. You can't do that when you're emotionally like having a panic attack or you're trying to in that fight or flight mode. So that's one thing. I would say another one that for me was in my 20s when I was in college. I was a competitive 9-ball billiards champion in college. And so in order to get to that level of competing in pool,
Mhm.
you got to realize that pool is probably 50 to 60% mental.
Mhm.
I've seen so many people that had exceptional mechanics. They knew the angles, they knew all the shots, they knew how to play all the shapes, and they studied all the books and they would do the reps. So they had all the mechanics down. But when we get into competition, somebody would rattle their head by just saying something or, oh, yeah, that was a pretty bad shot there. You just get in their head. Like that was a term, like they're getting in your head. And I've seen these people with exceptional grade A mechanics just completely self implode and basically start playing somebody 3 levels. They're playing like somebody 3 levels below them in their skill set. And
Mhm.
so, very fortunate in my 20s to go through that because, especially when as a young man playing pool, a lot of the guys that I was playing with were guys like my age now. They're like 50s and 60s that were like these amazing players who knew all the mental games, who
Mhm.
knew how to get you off your game and screw with you and make you just implode. And so I remember falling for those traps early on and being, oh, I'm going to show this guy and I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to gamble and win his money. And you learn a lot of expensive lessons going through something like that until
Mhm.
you realize like I'm hardened by this stuff. So these comments and their behaviors, just like people that play poker really well, they can tell, they can see what people are doing and they don't let them make illogical decisions based on their emotions.
Mhm.
And so anything that's competitive, where especially if you're one on one against somebody, that's a mindset game. And I think a lot of times people just don't put themselves in those kind of situations enough to be able to master that kind of mindset control.
I love that analogy, pool playing, because I too was an avid pool player back in my younger days. And you're right, it is definitely mental. I remember a component of mine. We would travel around and I was in a couple of leagues and stuff like that when I was younger.
Mhm.
And there was this guy, and I know for a fact that he was a better pool player than me. His mechanics were better. He was smoother at it. He knew more English. I could tell he had more foresight, like he almost like he was a master chess player. Like he knew his 12 next moves, right? And I can see the next three or four,
Mhm.
right? But like I just felt like he could read the table a lot better than I could, and like I said, his mechanics. But his issue was is that I could get in his head. I always grew up around older people, and so I was always the youngest ringleader out of all of them. But like you had mentioned, they were older people, and this guy should have smoked me every time. But man, he
Yep.
would choke, and then I would choke, but then he would choke again, and especially 9-ball, like you can't choke twice.
No, you're sitting down for a while at the high levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that knows anything about pool, but the one thing and this is kind of off topic, but since we're speaking on the topic of pool, the one thing that I noticed was, and this goes back to being the sum of those that you surround yourself with. Okay. So we hung out at a particular pool hall, and there was a certain level of pool that people were playing there. And then when we would travel outside of our pool hall or outside of town or go into another state, it really started to open our eyes that we were only as good as the best person that was in the
For
pool
sure.
hall.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So we had to step outside of our comfort zone in order for us, and the felt was different. The tables were bigger, the pockets were
Humidity
smaller.
levels are different. It plays
Right,
different. The balls are different.
right. Like I had no idea that there was such thing, because a bar room has felt
Yeah.
for its top. When you go into like a legit 9 foot pool table, pool
Yeah. You
hall,
get
it
cloth.
has what's called a Simona felt,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what it's called, and the ball responds differently.
Oh, for sure.
More response to it once you get the hang of shooting on a 9 foot table opposed to an 8 foot table, I think it is, or 7 foot table that's in a
The
bar
bar
room.
rooms will be 7. The big ones will be 9.
Yeah, right. So there's different facets to it, but life is the same. Right. So if I just stay stuck and not go outside of my comfort zone and shoot better pool players, I will not become a
Yeah.
better pool player.
Yeah. You'll be the big fish in a little pond. I mean, every pool hall in America has the guy,
Mhm.
every one of those.
Yeah.
And some of those the guys match up at different tournaments around the state or regional states, and they figure out who the real guy is.
Mhm.
And it's usually, like you said, the one that travels a lot. And that's what my roommate back then, we would travel a lot and go to the different tournaments and play everybody that we could.
Mhm.
And so that's very important.
For sure, for sure. And plus that messes with your mindset too. When you're traveling for the first time, you may have better mechanics or better foresight on the pool table than those people you might be competing with.
Mhm.
But you get in your head, your mindset, your self-doubt, the fear that we talked about a little bit earlier starts to set in, and low self-esteem and those things. Because I've been in I used to throw a lot of darts too, and was pretty good at that. I grew actually was my babysitter when I would get off the school bus. My family owned a bar, so I would go in there and play darts or pool until 9:30 at night,
Mhm.
till the children had to leave, and then I would go upstairs, do my homework, and go to bed. So I had an advantage over most people, especially growing up as a kid. Now there was a good side to that and a bad side to growing up in a bar room, and I found the dark side, and that's a different podcast for a different time. But darts, same thing. We would travel a lot for darts, and I didn't really start to step my game up until I got around a different group, different mindset of people that were just like banging, triple, double red eyes,
Yeah.
bam, bam, bam. Like I didn't even know that existed. And then the type of tools, like the darts were thinner, the flight spun, like they had flight tip protectors and things like that. I didn't even know that stuff existed
Mhm.
until we stepped outside and started to surround ourselves around a different group of people at a different level that we didn't even know existed. And going back into, we don't know what we don't know until we step outside our comfort zone and make yourself vulnerable and expose yourself to different things like that.
Yeah. And I don't think that you can out practice your mindset, because like we just talked about, some of these people had exceptional mechanics. They've done the reps, they've done the
Mhm.
practice. They could play a perfect game if they had the mindset to match their mechanics. And
Mhm.
so it's good to do those reps, and you should be doing those if you want to be exceptional or master anything. But then you also have to build the confidence at the same time and be able to believe in yourself. That you talk about these dart players that can just hit bulls nonstop. They already know they're going to throw the bull when they walk up. They're that level of confidence, and they also have the mechanics to match. They're like bull, 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 20, 20, 20, triples. Like they know exactly where the thing's going to go because they've done the reps and they trust themselves. The
Mhm.
problem with a lot of these people that never make it to that level is they do the mechanics, and when there's no competition and there's no pressure situation, like they're going to be really exceptional. Like if they're just videoing themselves playing pool, they can probably run out several racks in a row. But they get them in competition, and it's like a whole different story. And we knew that. We knew who was like a really good player and who was a good tournament player. They're not always the same people.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, good point. Good point. Because some people can take the pressure, and some people can't take the
Yeah.
pressure. And the other thing is too, it's like home field advantage.
Mhm.
right? I don't like, just like in any sports, it's like the chances of the Steelers winning at home is better than it would be them on the road. And
Right.
it's the same thing. I think it's mindset and it's the comfortability. Like, I'm
For
at
sure.
home. This is our house. We own this house. So if you can go into somebody else's home field with that same mindset or mentality, or maybe even a notch up, um, you'll probably succeed, and your mechanics will be there. And who knows, you may end up doing something that you never even knew. And I think that's what happened for me when I stepped outside my comfort zone like that. I think I discovered another notch, another level that I didn't know existed, that I had in me. Let's talk about that a little bit, Tony. Like, um, how would one go about to find that other level that they didn't know existed?
You know, this is all just based on age, wisdom, and experience. There's no way around that. You mentioned it earlier. We don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And it takes a mentor or somebody that's got uh, an unbiased opinion of things that maybe they're watching, they see your blind spots and they just make you aware of those. And you're like, oh shit, like I didn't know I was, doing that. A lot of times, for example, people will come to me and want to do social media content and figure out how to make their personal brand stronger and things like that. And they'll send me a couple links and I go watch their content, and they're doing their best they can. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, because we all started again like it's sucking at something and we had to get better at it. But then I'll point out, like, you could do this better. The lighting over here is kind of messed up, and you reposition your head on the camera the way it's over here. And they're like, wow, I never even thought about that, because they didn't know better. And the problem, I think, with most people in the world that lack accountability is they use that I didn't know. They use that all the time. That's like their go-to excuse. And what happens is eventually they do find out, because somebody gives them that advice, or gives them the guidance, and they still use that same excuse. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. And so you and I both know this, that not knowing means you're ignorant, and that's nothing wrong with being ignorant. Ignorant defined as just the lack of knowledge, like you don't know. But once you know and you still keep doing stuff, now you're stupid. That's a different word. And so we have a lot of people out there running around doing stupid things, knowing better, but pleading in ignorance. And it's not the case. So how do we get to the next level? Well, you mentioned one of it, just being around other people that are operating at that next level. You're going to start to see how they think. You're going to see how they act, how they respond, the actions that they take that you are not. And you'll start to emulate them if you're smart enough, because every challenge or every goal that we have in our life, millions of other people before us in history have already had those exact same challenges, have had those exact same goals. And there's literally roadmaps that get us any goal that we want. But we have to be realistic, not delusional, and go, hey, am I willing to sacrifice this to get that? Am I willing to put those hours in to get that? And if the answer is no, then you should have a different goal, perhaps. Otherwise, you're just going to have a whole life of letting yourself down. So get to the levels that you want, but don't just chase things because you think that that's going to define you, or look for external validations to define your success. I think with business owners, especially, one of the biggest fallacies that I see people do is just chasing revenue. They want to have a 7-figure this. I want an 8-figure that. I want a 50 million this. I want 100 million this. Like, none of that shit matters. That's like, revenue feeds your ego, but profit feeds your family.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people think that, oh, if I have a $10 million revenue company, then somehow I'm a better entrepreneur than someone that's got a $5 million revenue company. That's not true. Let's look at your net profits. That guy with a $5 million company may actually be netting more, because you and I both know there's $10 million companies that lose money every year. So does that even matter? So in the internet space and podcast space and success space, and whenever I see people bragging about the revenue as part of their marketing, that's a big red flag to me, because real businessmen will talk about net profit. Hey, how much you bringing home? How much you taking home? That's what the real thing is. And how much time are you investing in order to do that? How much time away from your family are you sacrificing in order to achieve that? Is it worth it to you? And so you'll find sometimes these goals that you think that you want are not really the things that satisfy or are going to bring you happiness or fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, such a great topic. Such a great topic, because I'll admit I was guilty early on too in business, that I was chasing the revenue, not necessarily the net profit, and didn't even understand, COGS or gross, the difference between gross or net. But that's where you have to live in the net. Is
Yeah.
how I look at things. I kind of look at the P&L upside down. You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
created this? How did I come up with this down here?
How
Not
do I
necessarily.
maximize the bottom line? That's what
Yeah.
I'm interested in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, that's such a great topic. That a lot of people, I think, especially in the roofing industry, unfortunately, I mean, well, in business in general, I think what most 80% of businesses go out of business in the first 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I think, or maybe is it the first
It's
5 year,
actually
but
5.
yeah,
50% are out of business by year 2, 80% are by year 5.
yeah. So, I mean, that's huge. I mean, think about that. I mean, and then I think that's telling you right there that most businesses, even if it's somebody that you know that's near and dear to your heart, is probably on the verge of going out of business. You
Mhm.
know, there's not too many, out there that are actually thriving or can make it past the 10-year mark. But change gears here a little bit, I guess. Let's talk about building a strong work-life balance, or like I like to say, a work-life blend.
Mhm.
Being someone who focuses on personal growth, how can individuals achieve a healthy work-life blend, not just for business owners, but entrepreneurs, business owners, but high-performing people in any industry that they're in, but um, more importantly, like not not to get burnout. Like if that
Yeah.
made any sense, I'm stumbling
No,
over the word.
this is a really important question. So at the end of this past year, my wife and I, we took off almost 3 weeks. We spent all the time in Europe, and I really unplugged. I didn't take calls. I didn't take meetings. I didn't do marketing, and it was all planned ahead of time. And so I had a lot of time to spend with my family and reflect and kind of plan for the 24 season. And, the topic that always comes up, especially as a coach, is how do I set goals? How do I set goals for 24? How do we make this the best year ever? All these New Year's resolutions and things like that, which I think everybody should have, because I don't want to discourage anybody from setting goals. But in that period, a couple of weeks, I started to think about how do I set goals? How do I, especially in the last, let's say, 5 years, because I think we always evolve. And I started looking back, and I determined that me personally, the way I set goals, it boiled down to one question that I had to answer for myself. And usually you think it's going to be super complicated. Oh, I got financial goals, I got fitness goals, I got business goals, I got family goals. I got, like, it seems complicated, but that's how I started out this kind of assessment. And I started whittling it down, like, no, what is the real question?
Mhm,
How does that boil down to as minimal things I can focus on as possible?
mhm,
And the question is, am I happy and am I fulfilled? That's the only question I have to answer at the end of a year. Am I happy and fulfilled at the end of this year? And so when I understood that that's the only question that really matters, now you can start to realize, well, in order for me to become happy and fulfilled at the end of this year, 24, what is the bare minimum that I need to accomplish or achieve in order to have that met, where I can go, hey, I'm happy and fulfilled? And you'll find that it's a lot less chaotic and a lot less expensive, or a lot less resource intensive, to be able to achieve that on a personal level. And you and I are very critical of ourselves, just like most people are. And we're really hard on ourselves. And so we set these lofty goals because we want to, go crush some new revenue record and do this and that. And we get to the end of the year and we came up short. So I failed this year. I
mhm,
failed. It wasn't a good year. But if they were to look at their minimum goals of what would it take for you to be happy and fulfilled, you might find that it would just meant, hey, spending more time with your friends and the family and people that mattered to you. Or maybe it was, following up on some old relationships with friends that you hadn't really reached out to in a while, and bringing those back into the circle. And so you'll find that there's a lot of things that really check our box to make us truly happy and fulfilled. Maybe it's coming in a place of service, or helping other people, or doing a nonprofit, or whatever it is that makes you personally happy or fulfilled. That should be the goal. And now everything else above that, all the financial stuff, all the other things, consider that bonus round.
mhm,
That's bonus. Like, I want to be happy and fulfilled as the bare minimum. Everything else is extra. And here's where the mindset shift comes in. When we set these lofty goals outside of doing like the normal way people do it, and we can track, we're measuring things as we go, we can see if we're going to hit that goal, right? A lot of times when you're not going to hit that goal, a lot of people lift off the gas. They start to get discouraged, which creates a lack of momentum. It starts to drop. Their self-worth issues and insecurities start to attack them because like I called this out and I told my team I was going to do this and we're not going to do it. And so they really self-sabotage themselves mentally because they're not going to achieve that goal. Or if they don't achieve that goal, I was a failure this year. I didn't do this thing. They're so hard on themselves. They're setting themselves up for failure going into the next year because they don't have that momentum going into the next year. But if you were to do it the way I talked about, like set the bare minimum to create your fulfillment and happiness. And if you operate with all these other things that we should aspire to be bonus, that's a different mindset. Now, like, hey, I've already done the things that make me happy and fulfilled for this year. We're in bonus round, baby. Let's go get this stuff. Like we can achieve some of this stuff. It's not based on like, if I don't do this, I'm a failure. If I don't do this, I'm not successful. If I don't do this, people are going to judge me. Like, no, it's bonus round. Think of like video games. Like when you got in bonus rounds, especially back when we were a kid, we were putting quarters in shit, right? You got a bonus round, like you played your ass off and you're all excited and you're like, competitive and you're trying to maximize that bonus round. Like, why can't we be like that with our work? Instead of going, oh, boo-hoo, I don't think I'm going to make it. So it's been a tough year. And like, you're not helping yourself by doing that.
No, I like that. I like that a lot, Tony. You actually shared that with me in one of our calls. So there's a golden nugget for everybody out there that I actually had to get to pay for, that everybody gets to listen to for free right now. I'm just kidding, because you give so much more value than that. But I actually have been more aware of those bonus rounds that you talked about. Like, okay, and I'm going to use this as an example. We set out we are on our goals for the year, and like you said, it's not very extravagant. And I shared my theory with you as well. It's like this year I'm not going to pile a bunch of more goals on top of it. My goal is to actually remove some of this shit.
Yep.
Right. And becoming more self-aware, whether it's people, places, things. I can only spend so much time around this person because they suck my energy, but they need to be in my life, or remove certain situations that I really no longer have to do that somebody else can do because it's whatever the case might be. But we were invited to April Hall's SRC show. And I looked at that as a bonus. Like this was bonus. Like we didn't set out to do that necessarily, but we were asked and we had the opportunity to do it and the time to fit it in there. So it was like, we get to do this. We don't have to do this. We are actually able to do this. We were invited to do this. And this is bonus that Tony talks about so much, is that this is bonus. And it was great because we didn't set out necessarily. We didn't know what shows we were going to do, but we got the phone calls like, hey, we would love you to come to our show. Behind the Tool Belt is awesome. And we would like you to speak on stage. It's like, dude, bonus, win, and big another bonus. Yeah. Like, let's go. So the work that we put in last year, right, doing what we didn't really see the bonuses from doing what we did last year right away, but it was almost like a delayed gratification. We put in the work, and that's a whole other topic of delayed gratification or instant gratification as well too, because sometimes we just got to keep putting in the work. They may not see the results right away. You know what I mean? But it's that delayed gratification that we got to experience this year that became bonus for this year, because our expectations weren't that we were going to travel every other week to go do shows. It was like, we're going to back that off again, going back to what are we removing that's either a time suck or a money suck, or what can we carve out to make things a little more simpler on ourselves? Because you touched on this earlier, like, God, we're our own worst critics. And we put the expectations for ourselves is so high. And when we don't meet that expectation, we lose that momentum, whether it's going into the week, the day, the quarter, or into that year. We can self-sabotage ourselves because the expectations that we set for ourselves is so unrealistic and so unattainable, which isn't a bad thing either. Don't kid yourself or fool yourself. You should have that big, hairy, audacious goal. Everyone should have a BHAG. But I think we do too many BHAGs, or we throw too much on our plate, where we should learn how to delegate better. What are we removing, right, for positiveness in our life? And what can we add once we get that trash can cleaned out? What can we now be strategic and very intentional about putting in? The people, the situations, the things that I enjoy. And like you said, most importantly, how do I make myself feel fulfilled today?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? What changes am I going to make in my life today to make myself feel more fulfilled? And when you do that, it might sound selfish, but if I'm not taking care of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally, we can't take care of anything else
No,
either. So that's what it's really about. It starts right here.
for
And
sure.
then
You should take care of yourself. You should be your number one priority, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And, we even, take the flights to say, put your air mask on before helping other people. You have
one
to
more
be
line.
the
Yeah,
best version of yourself in order to be able to give extra, right? So
absolutely.
nobody wants you as a lower performer, a hollow shell of yourself that you just give it all out and you can't replenish,
Hmm.
right? And you talk about this, like, how do we get time? Okay. I have this love and hate thing with technology, and I appreciate that it creates more time. Like, the only reason we use technology or anything is that it saves us time. That's what we want. Time is the most valuable asset we have. It can't be replaced. The problem with people in the last 20 years is that they free themselves up with time from this technology, but then they compress that time by adding more shit to do. And so now we're walking around and we have way more tasks than somebody in the 1980s did, because they didn't have all this technology to compress times and all these different things. And so, unfortunately, our society's used time to compress and then backfill that free time with more shit to do, which creates way more stress, way more anxiety, way more opportunities to fail. And so, if you were to use these opportunities to create time for yourself, why wouldn't you backfill that with something that you love to do, or you have a lot of joy with? Maybe that's carving out an hour for yourself a day to go to the gym finally, instead of making excuses, right?
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself. Maybe it's having lunch with your spouse. Start learning how to use technology to create that time, but then maybe use that time to go travel, or maybe use that time to spend time with the kids and go to the game finally. That's
Hmm.
the thing that brings you peace. That's what people are looking for.
100%, 100%. And you talked about fitness there, working out and stuff like that, and you being a health nut that you are. Let's talk about that a little bit. Fitness and its impact on success. Like how has maintaining a regular workout routine contributed to your personal and professional success?
Most people will fall off the wagon at some point in their life and their fitness journey. I was an athlete when I was young, and I sold my first company. I was 34, had a few million in the bank, kind of got lazy. And between 35 and 39, I kind of had the man boobs coming in, the gut was sticking out pretty far. And I remember really, really, like it was like yesterday. I'm 51 now, so it's been a while, but I still remember walking up a moving escalator, like like one of those long escalators. It was moving. I was running late for a meeting. I had to walk up it to beat the elevator. I got to the top of a moving escalator and I was huffing and puffing. I was like, this shit's got to stop. Like, this is not good at all. Like, I just walked up a moving escalator and I can't even catch my breath. And so at 39, I decided, okay, I'm about to be 40. I need to get back in shape. And I already knew how to do all the workouts and stuff like that. It was just lack of discipline. And here's the thing is that in my 30s, I had aches and pains. So I had football injuries and martial arts injuries. And so it was like shoulder, knee, and lower back. Very common shit. A lot of roofers probably have that all the time, right? And I use those as really convenient excuses. So my wife would always go to the gym and she'd say, hey, I'm going to the gym. You want to go? She never like, gripe at me. She'd always invite me and I always declined. And for like 4 years, I just like, oh, shoulder hurts, or I'm too tired, or, I got stuff to do. I just made every excuse in the book. And what I was really doing is I was hiding from my earlier in life potential, because most people unfortunately peak in high school and college when they're athletes, and they think, oh, those were the good old days. And I was Letterman and I could have went pro, and, all the bullshit stories. Right. And so they know, especially when you get in your 30s, that I am physically weaker than I was in my 20s. And I don't want to be embarrassed when I go to the bench press and I try to do what I used to do and it falls on my chest and I can't get it off. And that'd be just really embarrassing situation. So men are like weird. Like, men are worried about what other people in the gym are going to think about them. And, I'm fat and I don't want to go back because I feel fat. Like, I had all those thoughts in my mind. Right. And so at some point I was like, I just don't want to be like this way anymore, because I felt in my mind I was still an athlete, but then I would look in the mirror and I didn't see what I thought I felt. So I was looking at pudgy guy who's soft and weak, even though I felt in my mind I was still that athlete in my 20s. And so I had to get right with myself and start to realize, like, no, I need to go become that version of me that I still feel like I am inside.
Mhm.
And so that's when I started being more committed to doing that. Yeah, the first 2 months sucks. You're sore, you're sore in all kinds of places in your body that you forgot about. And once you make it first past that first 2 months, it starts to become a routine. And then here's what people don't realize, because they quit too soon, is that your body starts to crave those workouts. Once you get into that cycle and you start out maybe going 2 times a week just to get started, and then eventually that becomes 3 days. And I go 6 days a week is what I planned. Most of the time I go 7. And people just quit because they don't get to that point where their body craves that workout, where you skip a day and your body's like, what the hell, man? Like, we got to go do this thing. Just like dogs like to be walked. We're animals too. We like to be walked. Right.
Mhm.
And so once you start to get in through that and you start to get disciplined and you start eating healthier, it comes in. And so, yeah, it's been, I guess 12 years now consistently working out, and I'm physically stronger now than I've ever been in my life.
Mhm.
I mean, just yesterday I deadlifted another 500-pound deadlift at the top of my workout reps. So I did all my reps, kept stacking weight, did my peak, and then I worked my way back down. And so I don't have any aches and pains anymore. I don't have any joint issues. I've never had surgery. I don't do TRT or any of those supplements. I just eat healthy and I work out and I lift heavy. And by doing that, I've become physically stronger than I've ever been, even in my 20s.
I
So
love
you can't have these excuses. You just got to think about it. I just need to go put in the work.
Right on. Discuss the connection between physical fitness and mental clarity and productivity.
You just feel more confident when you are in shape, right? You feel better. Your clothes fit better. You carry yourself a little bit different, especially as we're older. Let's say, guys, if you're in your 20s and you're watching this and you're in shape, who gives a shit? Like, you should be in shape in your 20s. Like, you can't throw what do they say? Throw a cat or something and hit, you always hit a 20-year-old that's in shape. Like, if you got abs and you're in your 20s, cool story, bro. We all did, right?
Mhm.
Now, if you're in your 30s and you're in shape, you're kind of unique. You kind of stand out a little bit because people kind of let themselves go in their 30s. They start having kids and making a bunch of excuses. 40s, if you're in shape, like, you actually stand out quite a bit. Like, there's not that many 40-year-old men or women who are actually physically fit. Like, that's unusual. You'll see them at the gym, but not in society, right?
Yeah.
50s even more so. Like, out in public, I see a lot of people that are my age or older, even younger, and they're not even close. And you start to realize, like, okay, this is a good way to make me stand out. And when I see someone, how they take care of themselves, it shows me a level of their discipline and also self-worth issues, right? And some people will go, well, that's vanity. You're just trying to look good, to make other people. Yeah, you should, like, because we do get judged by our covers. And the whole, like, don't judge a book by its cover. That's bullshit. Everybody gets judged, and so you can pretend that it doesn't happen, or you can actually do something about it. And so, think about that work we do. Entrepreneurship it's very competitive. It takes a lot of energy, mental energy too. And if you're not optimal and conditioned to be able to handle that level of energy and treat this like a sport, which it is, like, entrepreneurship is a sport to us. You and I love this game. This is our game.
Mhm.
If you're not showing up at your best level to perform that game, then why are you even playing? You're half-assing at that point.
I love that. That's so good. Because you're right. Entrepreneurs, high performing leaders, CEOs, CFOs, and just to make something clear here, yes, Tony and I are both business owners and entrepreneurs, but this mostly, I'd say 90% of what we're talking about right now applies to anybody at
Anybody.
any level, any age. And that's what's so cool about this. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to want to take care of your body. Because again, going back to, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of your family or those around you, your coworkers, or the people that are under you or beside you. So it's the importance of self reflection. Every night, just about every night when I lay in bed, I reflect my day. I review my day. What did I handle good? And what did I not handle so good? And then how did I, what did I handle so, poorly? And I was talking to you a little bit earlier about this. There was one little thing that I shouldn't have said to somebody, but again, I had the opportunity to see them again today and was like, hey man, that was kind of shitty, a little snarty there. And I didn't really mean to come out. And that's not what I meant at all. And they were like, oh, no. It wasn't no thing to them, but it was to me. But that's just self-awareness. But, I guess the question is, especially when it comes to working out, the coming up with an effective strategy, for staying motivated and resilient especially during difficult times or when I just don't feel like working out. So what's your strategy that keeps pushing you at this point? And 12 years later, I mean, you're into it. Like how?
Okay. It's another mindset shift. Okay. Let's say that you're a business owner. We'll use you example. Okay. Do you have certain clients that you would say are like your top clients?
Yeah,
If they scheduled a meeting with you, would you show up?
absolutely.
Would you be late?
I'd try like hell not to be.
So why do we put other people that we value, that we find important, that we would always show up and we would never be late, but we won't do that for ourselves? So the gym time or any kind of personal development time, whether that's coaching or meditating or whatever you think that you need on a personal level, you need to start thinking about that as that is a very important meeting with somebody who is the most important person in your life.
Mhm.
And if you start thinking that this is an important meeting with myself, I'm not going to let you distract me. I'm not going to change my plans because I've got a very important meeting with myself. And you can actually use that excuse. If people are like, hey, can we have a meeting on 2:00 tomorrow? And you're like, sorry, brother, I've got a very important meeting, but maybe 3:30 we can do that. They don't need to know who the meeting's with. It's with you. The most important person that should be is you. Most people will say, oh, my kids are more important. My wife's more important. Like, no, it's you. You need to take care of you first, and then you can take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
And so that mindset shift is like, this is my time, and I'm going to guard this time. And there better be a damn good reason for me to miss a very important meeting with the most important person in my life.
And that's you. I love that. I love that analogy. And honestly, if you're not taking care of yourself first, now you're just playing the martyr.
Yeah.
You're typically probably the person saying, I'm looking out after everybody else and I just don't have time. It's like, okay, so now you're playing the martyr. And I liked your analogy there. What had motivated me or continues to keep motivating me, and I'm going to use this as an example. Jana, who's on here right now, who's my best friend, and we travel a lot, and we enjoy our time together. And every now and then we'll go out on the boat and anchor the boat and jump in the water.
Mhm.
And the last time we didn't get to do that very often this year. I think we got out on the boat maybe once the entire summer, that needs to change. That's a different topic for a different time. But we got in the water and the current was really strong. But, so we had to hold on to the boat. And I could see that her little legs were going under the boat, like it was sucking her under the boat. And what occurred to me is, am I strong enough to pull her out if shit hit the fan? Would I be strong enough to lift the boat, move the boat, yank her out of there? And I questioned that. So now when I'm in there doing bench presses and I'm doing the curls and I'm getting it, just getting it, and then sweat's coming down, I'm thinking to myself, I need to put myself, my family, and my family in a position where I'm not saying I need to be Incredible Hulk, but am I in a physical fit, mental and physical state where I can protect my family if something would go down? Or am I that fat, gelatinous, big titty, big belly guy that we talk about with Cheeto dust, as Bedro talks about Cheeto dust and my belly button sitting on the couch all day? Or am I the guy getting it in the gym?
Yeah.
Not just for me. It is for me, yes, but it goes back to, I need to take care of my well-being, right? My physical fitness, my mental fitness, and no matter what that means, if I have to seek outside help, a physical trainer, a mental
Therapist, whatever.
Whatever the case might be, that means that I am responsible for that. No one else is responsible for that. But if I want to suit up and show up and perform at the highest level possible, whether I'm an athlete or an entrepreneur, which is really no difference at the end of the day, an entrepreneur or a professional athlete, right? We need to train the same way, have the same mindset.
For sure.
I want to make sure if shit hits the fan, whether we're getting robbed, whether there's a situation where we're, a great event turned into a tragic incident, like, am I prepared mentally and physically to overcome that objective or that adversity at that moment? It's almost like we're preparing ourselves for the worst, but taking care of our bodies at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. The hero mentality. Are you willing to step up to be the hero when it's called upon?
Yeah, right. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but when I want to quit and not do those last two, I'm struggling. It's like I envision Jana getting sucked under that boat, and it's like, I get it.
I'm
Like,
the
one
same
more
way.
now, one more, like one more.
I'm the same way. If I still got gas in the tank and I'm doing that specific workout, I will do extra reps until I can't.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, until it burns so hard, or you're going to injure yourself. Right?
I still feel those, and that's a good workout.
Yeah, absolutely. Good freaking podcast. So Tony, before we get off here, man, that's such good stuff, man. Your knowledge is awesome, man. So if you guys just are now tuning in, man, please hit us back on a replay and get yourself a pen and pad, because you're going to want to take notes, because Tony just dropped the golden goose eggs all over the floor up in here. So, but Tony, before we get off here, man, like give us our viewers and myself some advice on, what should we be listening to? What book should we be reading?
Good stuff.
Yeah. Where are you at right now? Or what would you recommend?
So my website is 365driven.com. And if you go to that website, you'll see the tabs. There's one tab called resources. And if you click on that, you'll find an Amazon page that I've basically put all the books I read in order of impact to me, personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Number one book on there is obviously the one I wrote, because it did change my life.
Mm-hmm.
The next book is How to Win Friends and Influence Other People by Dale Carnegie. And that's a classic book from, I think, the 1940s. But to me, I think that's mandatory reading for everybody. They should teach that book in school, to be real. Mm-hmm. And so there's probably hundreds of books on there, but that's a good way to kind of get some ideas of the things that I read and how they impacted me. Podcast 365driven.com. That's, it's a top 1% rated show. We've been doing it for over 5 years now, and I've had a lot of the bigger names out there, and we'll definitely have you on there as a guest on a future episode as well. But it's health, wealth, mindset, and relationships. I find people that are exemplifying excellence in each of those categories, and I bring them on the show and dig out the information for those. They're about an hour, each episode, and does really well. And I enjoy doing that. And so, if you guys have any questions or you want to reach out to me, I'm very accessible. You can always hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, and I'd be happy to have any questions or comments with you.
Awesome. And what was your website again?
365driven.com.
365driven.com. There you have it. So thank you for coming on the show, Tony. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy our conversations, and I'll look forward to our conversation tomorrow.
All right.
And thank you for everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to like, love, subscribe, share the shit out of this to your friends that you feel it might get something out of. So you guys have a great afternoon, and stay tuned to next week. We have another great guest. So thanks for watching.